Welcome. You're tuned to the Urban Affairs program. It's time to get up for Urban Perspectives with your host, Pete Rhodes.
Welcome, you're watching Urban Perspectives. I'm your host, Pete Rhodes. On this edition of Urban Perspectives, it's sponsored in part by Summit Academy OIC and the Minnesota Timberwolves. On this episode, we will discuss community giving with three premier foundations who have greatly impacted all communities statewide. Through their work in civic engagement, economic vitality, and health and education, their community impact has helped to address the needs and close the disparity gaps in our communities. I'm sure you will be enlightened by the information on this show. So stay with us here as we take a look at community giving on Urban Perspectives. My first guest has assembled a track record for outstanding public service, community engagement, and a passion for justice and equity in our communities. She is the Vice President of Community Impact for the Minneapolis Foundation, where she oversees $5 million annually in community grants for education, economic vitality, and social capital. She brings 20 years of experience with engagement and is committed to empowering the communities of color. Please welcome Luz Maria Frais.
Luz Maria Frais, yes.
So glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
And as I told you last night, I must have practiced Luz Maria Frais about 15 times.
Well, you just said it perfectly.
I just said it perfectly.
You're good.
So we have something in common, coming from the same part of the country, and coming here to the great state of Minnesota to do great work. Tell us a little bit about you and the department and how important the work that you're doing in that department, Luz.
Well, I serve as the Vice President of the Foundation, overlooking the community impact, as you mentioned, and we focus on closing the disparity gaps in education and economic opportunities and civic engagement. We partner with our donors to make sure that all children have access to quality education, have access to jobs, and have access to empowerment and having a voice.
Yeah. If you looked at three of the important areas, and there are so many of them, but what three, in your opinion, would be just optimum in terms of what you're doing and the importance of them?
Well, we focus our work pretty much in three buckets. The first bucket is education, ensuring that all of our children are ready to succeed in school and graduate and go on to college and a career and be successful in our economy. The second one is economic opportunities, ensuring that there aren't any disparity gaps, that everyone in our community have access to high quality jobs, a living wage, and creating them the opportunity that they want in their lives to create wealth. And the last is civic engagement. We empower communities of color to be at the table by way of leadership training, voter registration and outreach, and also community organizing.
Well, as we look at your history and studied your history and researching what Luz really does and where she comes from, you've been involved in the community for quite a long time, even as a young lady in the community. So when you look at the work that you've been doing thus far, can you give me one that really inspired you and that you know had a major impact?
Well, I tell you, I grew up in Chicago, as you mentioned earlier, in a low-income community that was also racially segregated.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, that really formed who I am as a young child and as an adult, everything from going to law school to the careers that I've had as well. My last job before here was the director of Human Rights and Equal Economic Opportunity. It's always a mouthful to say, for the city of St. Paul.
Yeah.
And in that role, we really did make an impact in terms of creating opportunities and wealth for communities of color, particularly with minority-owned businesses, and really changing how the city does their business. And we pretty much grew it from $1 million a year to $13 million a year, which is a substantial impact in what we could do in the city.
Very
and
important.
That continues today.
Yeah, very important work. You know, the types of corporate partners that work with the Minneapolis Foundation are unique in the way that you build support. Can you talk about how that happens and maybe some of the folk that are part of that?
Sure. And we have corporate partners. We also have just regular people as well. And it really runs the gamut. We can have small business owners perhaps that are selling their business and they would like to contribute to the community, not only because they're civically minded, but also because there's a tax advantage. And then we have regular people. I'll tell you a story. One of our donors, Emma B. Howe. Emma B. Howe lived a frugal life. She was a proofreader at Deluxe Corporation. and she works 6 days a week. And all of her savings she invested by buying stock in Deluxe Corporation. And when she passed away in 1985, she left $27 million worth of stock for the foundation. During that course of time, since 1985 till today, we have extended more than $50 million in the community along the areas that she cared most about, whether it was education and really looking at building a future for our youth. She didn't have children of her own, but she really imagined having a community where all of our youth thrived. Now, that's not to say that everyone needs to be a millionaire.
Right.
It just is that people who have a commitment really like to partner with us because we allow their giving to go further.
Yeah. How has this impacted you personally? I know you are this is you. I mean, this is part of what you do, but being here at Minneapolis Foundation, how has it impacted you, Luz?
Well, we have a framework that's built on equity, everything from economic equity, racial equity, and social equity. So we see that and use that lens in everything that we do. And as I say to people often, I would be doing that work anyway because I'm really grounded in civil rights. Yeah. So the fact that I get to call it a job and get paid for it is just extra icing on the cake, because really it's about creating a community where we all have access and we build the community's richness and diversity for what it really is, and it's a gift for all of us to enjoy.
Yeah. In the 10 seconds or so we have left, what can we expect major coming from the foundation next?
We're celebrating our centennial year the next year in 2015, and you can expect an incredible amount of celebration and opportunity. We have a Futurist conference that will invite everybody in September. And until then, they'll continue to watch our work. We really like to partner with our donors to give back into the community and make their giving go further.
Great. Luz Maria Frais, thank you so much for being here and imparting on us some major information about the Minneapolis Foundation. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Up next, we'll talk with a person whose core value centers on inclusiveness. She is intimately involved with the Greater Twin Cities United Way diversity strategies and is deeply committed to serving the urban communities. I'll talk with Leslie Taylor next on Urban Perspectives. Welcome back to Urban Perspectives. Joining me next is the Vice President of Diversity and Community Engagement for Greater Twin Cities United Way. She works with an array of partners who focus on serving underrepresented communities, grassroots organizations, employee groups, and workplace campaigns. And although her work is ever-changing, we often see her in our communities representing us as a true role model. Please welcome Leslie Taylor. Leslie, how you doing?
Good, Pete. Good to be here.
We were just talking about we were at the same church for the christening of a young baby who was just really into it. So we see each other often in the community, and it's glad to have you here on board with us.
Good to be here. See you in action.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's start off. You are the first African-American woman sitting on an executive leadership team there at the Twin Cities United Way, Greater Twin Cities. How did you come to this position, and how did you come to United Way?
That's a great question. And I first want to clarify, first African-American of the combined United Ways.
Okay.
Because I certainly want to acknowledge and recognize Charmaine Chapman, who was the leader of the St. Paul United Way, an African-American female who went on to St. Louis to do great things.
Yeah.
But certainly since the Greater Twin Cities United Way has been in existence, which is now the combined, combining of both St. Paul and Minneapolis, I do have the privilege and honor to work with Sarah Caruso and a tremendous, talented senior leadership team. How I came to United Way, it's kind of a brief, interesting journey. Having spent all of my career on the corporate side, found myself having to make some decisions around my career, whether I wanted to move or not move. And many who have children understand how much they can factor into that decision. So at that time, I had a budding, aspiring basketball player I had to pay attention to, and unfortunately, at the same time, was dealing with an ill parent, my dad. So made the decision to remain in the Twin Cities, and actually just started connecting. And so, to be quite candid, I have two individuals, Ron Price and Retha Clark-Kling, to thank for showing me opportunities at Greater Twin Cities United Way.
Well, that's fantastic. We're glad you're staying here with us as well. You know, the Twin Cities is changing, and as it becomes more diverse, how does the Greater Twin Cities United Way approach the responsibility to provide service equally and to help close the disparity gaps in the communities of color?
I think Greater Twin Cities United Way, first of all, whose mission is to unite caring people to create pathways out of poverty for all. It's been our mission, and I think it's evolving, quite candidly, from a United Way that was known and still is today as being one of the largest funders of programs outside of the state entities. But several years ago, United Way made a conscious decision to want to change kind of its image around not just being a fundraiser, but also being an organization that is at the table helping to create solutions. When that decision was made, it also said we had to think differently about how we grant money into the community. And what we're seeing now and what many will see is a very intentional strategy around the process that we use, request for proposals, where we actually are going out and looking for the best programs that are intentionally focused on the areas of income, education, and health in communities of color, and are really intentional about their strategies and their outcomes that will show that they're closing, or at least making progress to close those gaps.
Can you name one or two of those programs that we would be familiar with, and maybe some of the partners that are involved with you?
When you think partners, our corporate partners, certainly you'll be talking to one shortly, General Mills, Elaine Luger, who is a very key partner of ours, as is 3M, Target, and many other major corporations.
Comcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We couldn't do it without our corporate partners. We happen to be a very generous city as far as our corporate partners are concerned. Some of the agencies that you might be familiar with would be Way to Grow, which is in North Minneapolis, Pillsbury United, Clues, and other organizations that are doing phenomenal work and working to close the gaps. But not only are they doing this work, there is a tremendous amount of attention that also has to be paid to the systems and policies. And while we are not we're not a strong policy organization, we certainly do work with the state and other governmental units in helping close that gap, so everyone is playing their part.
Great.
And I think that's critical.
Well, in 5 seconds that we have, how has this impacted you personally, working here, doing all the great stuff you do?
You know, reflection, it's had a tremendous impact. You know, you asked me how I started and came from the corporate side and remembering being asked to give to United Way. And I knew they did great work, but it wasn't until I was on this side of the fence that I truly get to see the work that United Way does. And I think the better question that we always ask ourselves, what would happen if United Way wasn't here? And when you get a chance to talk to the many families that we touch, it's just, and when you hear the success stories of individuals that have been touched by United Way, and so it just makes me proud to be a part of that organization.
That's great.
And so as we celebrate our 100 years next year, we are excited about what lies ahead for this community.
I am sure that you will continue to represent us as a true role model and continue to do the best job there for us, and we'll talk more about United Way coming up.
Super.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Leslie Taylor, here with us on Urban Perspectives. Weekly here as well on Urban Perspectives, we present Shining Stars, brought to you by Continental Diamond and BMAnetworks.com, highlighting people, places, and events that contribute to the vibrancy of the urban community. On Shining Star this week, it's a rising figurative artist. She's a student at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design whose passion for people shines through her paintings. Let's take a look at our Shining Star, Leslie Barlow.
My name is Leslie Barlow, and I'm an oil painter, a visual artist, and I'm currently in the graduate program at Minneapolis College of Art and Design. I'm an oil painter. My paintings are pretty large, I would say kind of large-scale, life-size work. Usually figurative. I work a lot with the figure, the human body, and a lot of my work is pretty content-based, meaning that I investigate different issues, and particularly right now related to race, gender, and multiculturalism, identity. things like that. It's really important that art is kind of this vessel for speaking about issues going on today and of course in the past. And I use my art as a way to speak about current social issues, and I think a lot of people, when they look at art, it's really easy for them to connect with it. You know, a lot of people are visual people, and so I use visual medium to talk about these issues. And as far as, you know, race and gender and being multiracial myself, I think that there needs to be a voice for the underrepresented multi-ethnic community in the art world. So for me, I think speaking about these issues just really opens up and starts a conversation about what it's like to be multiracial and having multiple identities and things like that. I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I mean, my ultimate goal is to be nationally and internationally exhibiting artists. I mean, my art really hasn't made it out of the Midwest yet. And so I would love this Minnesota girl to be able to make it past, you know, to make it past that and talking about these larger issues, you know. So yeah, I mean, I do want to bring my artwork outside of the Midwest, and like I said, you know, a goal of mine is to really work in arts nonprofit or art, you know, start an arts organization and just work with people. You know, I love people, I paint people, you know, social issues, people are really important to me. I'm Leslie Barlow, and you're watching Urban Perspectives.
Coming up next, we'll talk with the Executive Director of General Mills Foundation, whose day-to-day responsibilities include General Mills Women and Children Hunger Project grant making. She's an attorney and a former Rhodes Scholar, which means she's really smart. So join us here as I talk with Elaine Luger here on Urban Perspectives. I'm delighted to speak with my next guest. Her passion for community and volunteerism has created a strong bond with her company and our communities. She volunteers as a trustee at Breck School and the board member on the Minnesota Council of Foundation. She is the executive director of the General Mills Foundation and vice president of General Mills. Please welcome Elaine Luger. Elaine, how you doing?
I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning to you. You know, I often see you at every MLK breakfast, sitting there calming down the guests and seemingly having a great time as well.
Well, we are so thrilled. In fact, this year is the 25th anniversary of the Martin Luther King Holiday Breakfast, and it's a wonderful community event, and I have a very special seat sitting next to our speakers and getting a chance to visit with them.
That's fantastic. You know, in 2013, General Mills celebrated 60 years of giving in the communities. What causes were grants made and spent a lot of money?
Well, it's very exciting. 60 years of giving means that General Mills, the General Mills Foundation, has contributed more than $1 billion to causes and efforts around the world. Quite a bit of that here in our community, and really we're focused primarily on alleviating hunger, advancing nutrition, wellness, and improving education.
Well, I'm sure you worked on a lot in your tenure thus far. What has been some of the important projects that you personally were touched by?
Well, I think there are really two. One, we launched in 2002, long time ago, our signature program, Champions for Healthy Kids. And that program awards grants to nonprofits across this community, across our country, that are working to advance both physical fitness in kids as well as nutrition and healthy eating. So it's really about healthy, active lifestyles and helping youth understand that that's an important piece of their life, you know, starting early and continuing on.
Well, how important are those partners that you talked about? Because you were just mentioned previously on being a partner with an organization, Greater Twin Cities United Way. And so how important are your partners and who are some of them?
Well, our partners are critical to the work we do. We are very fortunate to have dollars, but we need the nonprofit partner to really extend our work and to be our boots on the ground. The front line, and the Greater Twin Cities United Way is a phenomenal partner. We've been the #1 corporate giver to that campaign for the last 15 years, so they're a fabulous partner, not only in raising funds, but also giving our employees an opportunity to volunteer in the community. And we've also got a number of other great community partners. I think about Juxtaposition Arts in North Minneapolis. I think about the Cookie Cart. I think about Pillsbury United. I mean, they're really Way to Grow, fabulous organizations that we support and have supported for a long time in the important work they do.
I would gather that this position that you have has really affected how you look at the world and important things. So what is important to you that you guys are covering over there, and how has it affected you?
Well, I think there are so many critical issues in our world today. I think what's exciting is we're trying to focus our efforts on a couple of areas that make sense for General Mills: hunger and nutrition as a food company, and education, because that's so important. And I think what's really exciting is when we can look at all the great work that's going on and really raise up those efforts and support those efforts that are truly making a difference for our community.
So the 25th anniversary of MLK coming up in January. Can you tell us who the guest speaker is going to be? Well, you probably don't want to let it out now, but
can't quite let that secret out. It's going to be fabulous.
It's going to be fabulous.
And we're also going to have some wonderful musical entertainment. So it's just going to be a wonderful breakfast to bring out the community, celebrate Dr. King, his legacy, and engage our community in volunteering and improving it even further.
Thank you so much, Elaine Luger, for being here with us. It was great talking with you, and look forward to talking to you soon again.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Urban Perspectives. I'd like to thank my sponsors, Summit Academy and the Minnesota Timberwolves, and my guests, Luz Maria Frais, Leslie Taylor, and Elaine Luger. And most importantly, I'd like to thank you, the audience, for getting up with Urban Perspectives, making us one of the hottest programs on local TV. Don't forget to Facebook us, like us there. You can do it now. And remember, there are positive things happening in our cities. You can see them right here on Urban Perspectives. Enjoy the photos of the week featuring Giant Steps Conference, their pre-party at the Ice House. I'm Pete Rhodes, and I'll see you next week.